What's up, you guys? Michael Streight here from the Proper Form podcast, with the Taylor Symmank, episode number 7. And I just realized, so you'll hear a little bit here as we get going on this episode, but Taylor and I went to high school together, played football together, and he was actually number 7 on the football team, right?
Yeah, yes.
Very interesting.
All works out.
Well, dude, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. I'm excited to go over a lot of things, some exciting news in your life, and some new chapters that are coming along that I'm pumped to discuss and share with the audience. But first and foremost, as I kind of start most of our episodes, just to get the ball rolling, some things that describe you. You're a man of God, business owner / entrepreneur, and also like business consultant. I'm excited to hear some of that. Family man. Yes, you're not married yet.
Not yet. No kids yet.
But family is very important to you. And that's awesome. I'm excited to hear some of it as well. And then newly engaged to your wonderful fiance, Nicole.
Yes, dude.
That's
It's
awesome.
wild to even hear the word fiance.
Yeah.
Like as of literally 3 days ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
New.
So,
and then it's going to be wife. And you're going to be like, you're my bride. You're my wife.
Dude.
This is crazy.
It's crazy.
Well, man, why don't we jump into that? It's fresh on your mind. I'm sure you've had jitters. You've been excited. How long have you guys been together now?
So it'll be a full 3 years at the end of May.
Okay.
So still basically almost 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you proposed it. Was it in Florida? Where?
Yeah. So Rosemary Beach this past Friday. So I'll try to make a short story
a
long story short. So I've been planning it for freaking months, and I wanted it to be a surprise, but she's that type of person that's like asking the questions always, like she's going to figure it out before I ever tell her anyway.
Yep.
So I had to be like super secretive, couldn't tell anybody even in my family till like the week of. Her family. I had to wait till, so she works with her brother and her dad, and so obviously could ask her dad. Yeah. So I had to wait till literally the day after she left. So I sent her out on Thursday. I went to ask him on Thursday after she left.
No way.
And then I go there Friday. The next day I fly out.
You were really believing that he was going to say
I didn't trust anybody, bro.
Well, I'm saying you were really trusting that he was going to say yes to letting you
100%. There's no option at this point. It's like she's already there, already have things set up. There's going to be roses on the beach. Like,
oh my
this
gosh.
is it. So, he said yes, thankfully. And then she said yes, thankfully, too. Gosh. But, yeah, so I've been planning it for so long. And she also said the hard part was she wanted, her name is Astrid, she's a professional photographer. She wanted her there at the proposal.
Her friend?
Yeah, her friend.
Okay.
So it made it a lot harder because if she's there, it's like obvious red flag, like, hey, like, okay, she's here. It's a cool place. Definitely happening. So I had to make it set up like it wasn't that way, to where she still had no clue. And thankfully, we were able to do that. So I had her create a fake little proposal of someone else hiring her to be out there and asked her saying, hey, I'm going to be out there a couple of days. I'll pay for your flight out here. I just want you to hang out with me and Rosemary. I know you've always wanted to go. And so that's what we did.
Nice.
And little I was like literally planning the whole thing out. So it worked out literally perfect. I could keep going on. But the scary part, and if American Airlines is watching this, I would like to talk to you.
Yeah, come on, reimbursement.
Yeah. So the first flight, I got delayed, and so I'm flying Friday. I'm proposing that Friday night. So I leave about 3:00. The flight on my way to the airport gets delayed by about 40 minutes, and I'm like, all right, this is 40 minutes that I really don't have to play with. And so I thought if we get delayed again, I would have missed it, right? So I was like, okay, cool. There are 40 minutes. Didn't realize an Uber situation was going to be tight out there. Like they don't get very many Ubers in Rosemary Beach. Which thankfully, if she's listening, I can't remember her name, but she literally took me from the airport to drop my bags off, waited for me outside to change, and then took me to the beach. And she didn't charge me for the other half. Wow. So I had like send her some extra stuff, but it was really cool.
This was an Uber driver. Like
yeah,
she
Uber driver.
Easily like, yeah, I'll stay and then peace out.
Yeah, just peace out. I've been running it was 1.5 miles, but I was like, at least I'm running at least, right? Like, so that whole thing was scary because I was like,
okay, stay in shape. You never know.
That's true. Stay in shape and have strong feet if you have to run on the cement. But yeah, it was. So that was Friday. So thankfully, American Airlines is still there. But thank you for making it a little tight for me. So I was going to have to roll out my bags and just like throw them in the bushes and then just get them after.
Just go. Yeah.
But on the way back, so everything was perfect all up until Sunday. We're about to fly back. I had planned a surprise, basically engagement party. It's like 40 people there, all the whole thing set up. Well, our flight we're supposed to fly out at 3, get back at 5. Flight gets basically delayed till midnight. They just cancel it. So we have to stay there an extra day. We missed the whole engagement party
my
and stuff like that. So we're gonna
gosh.
have it in 2 weeks from now. And that was the only
No.
part of the trip that sucked. Now, Florida was not a bad place to get stuck in. Don't get me wrong, there's worse.
Yeah.
But you cut that part out. American, it really sucked. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Should have reimbursed me on something. But yeah, that was
Dude,
it was
double
awesome.
whammy on
It
the
was-
flights.
Yeah, it was. That's hard when you're trying to. So many moving parts.
Well, of course, you guys haven't said I do yet. But if that's not just a sobering introduction to better or for worse,
Facts.
like,
Yeah.
dude, seriously, I hope, and did you have any other family that was in town specifically for the engagement party on that Sunday that like now is not going to be able to be there for the coming weekend?
Thankfully, they'll still. Most of them are here local or like can drive.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody flew in, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but they canceled it because the flight's 2 hours. So it's like 2 hours before saying, hey, it's not going on. And it's
You guys
like,
can still eat all the food and hang out if you want. We won't be there though.
just picture us there.
Let's take
Like,
a rain check for next weekend.
facts, dude.
Gosh.
So other than that, it was phenomenal. It was awesome. I've always wanted. I know she always wanted on the beach, and I've always wanted to kind of do it like in a cool way. It's where she remembered.
Yeah.
So and make it a surprise, which was the coolest part. The videos and all the pictures kind of helped me remember how much of all the stressful late nights and stuff like that, planning the whole thing and getting the timings right was worth
If
it.
there's one thing I could definitely encourage, and I did a proposal video. The proposal I did with Sophie with some friends from college at A&M, but if I could go back, Sophie and I wish, I don't hate using the word like regret, but I deeply regret and wish we would have videoed the wedding. We have a ton of pictures, but man, it's just, it's such an unbelievable moment of your life and a huge chapter and so many memories and people that are there that you don't always get to see. And yes, we have tons of great pictures, but we have zero video. And I, especially now with my two boys, like I wish I could show them like us dancing together and saying I do together and all of that. And there's some moments where like it hurts that we don't have that, but that's awesome that you did that. I would highly encourage, spend the money and the time on a videographer.
Yes.
And just save as much of that as you can. Because man, we're forgetful humans, and even like good things, there's a lot in our brains.
100%.
Yeah, but dude, that's so cool. I'm excited for you guys. Any timelines? I'm sure you're already getting asked 5,000 times. When are you gonna do it? She found a dress yet?
I know, right? We're thinking later this year, so maybe sometime in November, early December maybe, but November would be great. We're just trying to we're asking, we're going to get some people to say yes to what we're having to set up essentially first.
Of course.
But if we can do it then, that'd be ideal.
Yes, about 6 months.
Yeah.
Nice. That's what Sophie and I did.
Yeah.
You can do it. If people tell you, oh my gosh, that's not long enough, it's like, what I would always say is like, why would I want to wait any longer?
Facts, bro. I don't want to wait till next year. No way.
Be with this woman.
Yeah.
Don't hold me back from that. Yeah, for sure. And nothing against people that take longer engagements at all. But yeah, that's awesome, dude. It's going to be great. There's going to be a little bit of stresses, but it's going to play out the way it's supposed to play out.
100%. I'm excited for it.
Well, man, kind of tapping off of that just a little bit, going into kind of family man. Of course, not married yet, but you will be very, very soon. I know you from a personal level. We went to school, played football together at McKinney Boyd. Shout out.
Yup.
But yes, you have, just from what I've known, I would love for you to share, like, what has your family meant to you? I know that I've always looked up to you and just the consistent posture that you've always held as who you are as a person and your character, and that you've never really wavered from that. And I think that was enlightened through who you were as a friend, who you were during your football career, and would even say that's into the chapters of who you are now as, business consultant, business entrepreneur, and soon to be husband. But how has your family helped shape a lot of that?
Dude, I mean, I always, especially just in life in general and business, stuff like that, talks about as well as like environment is everything, dude. And some of us are born in harder environments to start and then you got to learn it. Yeah. And some of us are blessed in good environments and we get an upper hand sometimes. And so for me, it was, I believed I had an upper hand on that. And it felt like my obligation and my duty to go further than maybe someone that didn't get that, because it's a privilege I had, right? So I did grow up in a good family. I grew up in just in a great environment. Obviously, there's things I wish we were different. Some things, right? Like everybody, nothing's perfect. But for the most part, there was great things, right? And so just who I became, what I did, it just gave me a great starting place. And then even all the way through like cousins, grandparents, like all that too. Like my grandfather was huge in my life in helping me get to the NFL side of things because he coached for the Cowboys, had, Hall of Famers, like the whole thing. Like he was strength coach. Like I just spent so much time training with him and him going through and teaching me different things throughout my life that I don't know who I would be without it. You know what I mean? And just having that around me and that mindset just made a huge difference as well from the sports side too.
Yeah. A couple of questions I would love to ask kind of off that is totally understand. And I think I could agree to the point of like just the blessing of being dealt a great card on the family side, but also like there's a little bit of a choice there to be grateful in
That's
that. True. Which I think you were and have been, of course. But just what I'm trying to kind of get to or ask is like, how could you encourage anyone that maybe wasn't dealt such a great card there, or has maybe has some regret or shame within themselves that maybe they had that in the past, but as they are older, they realize that they didn't appreciate it. How would you encourage someone to kind of get into the right environment that they want to thrive in?
Yeah, 100%. On to the first one first. If you didn't get dealt the hand or whatever, I always go to the space because I do the same thing now, but I kind of start at a different spot, I guess you'd say, is like go to like taking pride in what your name is going to stand for because of you. Like make it to the aspect of like either it stops with me and I'm going to carry this thing beyond.
Yes.
And that goes for me too. Like my family's helped me run so far. Now it's time to hand the baton off, so to speak. It's like, how much further can I take it? I'm still taking that same approach, but someone may need to take it earlier in their life in order to do that for the ones that did start there. So like that mindset, because you take things different when it's like when your identity and your pride's involved. And if you can do it in a positive way, you start building it to where, okay, I didn't have it, but I can make sure my son does, number one, or my daughter does. And then number two, if I didn't have it, then now it's up to me. Like there just comes a certain age where it's like, now it's your responsibility of what changes and you have to stop blaming what happened or what cards you were dealt. Now you're dealt like the cards are in my hand now. I'm either going to turn them in and get a new deck or I'm going to play what I got. And like that choice has to be made. You can only live so long to where you're like, that was their fault. And I think early on at a young age, like that's just, you don't get a choice at that. But then when there does come that time to make a choice, you're like, okay, cool. I didn't get it. It sucks, but it's time to go in this particular area. And there's certain areas in my life where I feel that way. It's like, dang, well, I didn't have that quality or a characteristic, which I want now. Let's go do that. But I think that would be the first question to answer there. And then the people that look at it from or had it and look back and regret. And there's moments of that too for me as well. Like looking back when you get to college for the first year and you're like, dang, like I didn't realize how much my parents did. You know what I mean? Like it's that weird first year. And then even when you get back, when I got back from sports and stuff like that too, there's a lot of things I look back on. I'm like, dang, like so many different things that I had that I didn't realize were so vastly different than everybody else. Stuff like that too. So for that one, I think it's really just, the characteristic I always want to have, and even more in business too now, is like a characteristic of honor. And so like honor the space that you're in, honor the people that never outshine the master, essentially. There's a book called 48 Laws of Power. It's a great book, but it talks about that. And I think it goes into the space of like what honor truly is. And no matter, you don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to appreciate fully everything and what they do, but you can honor the space that they're in, right? Because even if your parents were like awful, they got you to the point where you are now, to where you're alive and you're okay. And you're still surviving, and you still have things. Like you can be appreciative of that because now you're old enough to do your own thing and make a choice and carry on what you want to. So you can be appreciative of something, because I think too in life, if we can't appreciate what we have, we won't appreciate what we'll get either. And then now it cuts off all the blessing of what we could do as well.
That's great.
So that's what I would say to those people.
Yeah, it's kind of just it's a shift of ownership.
Yeah, for sure.
I liked what you said about trading in the deck of cards and getting a new one. Like sooner or later, you got to turn the cards over. Whatever is like down on the table, you got to flip them over and you got to play them. And do that. Yeah, that's really, really good. And yeah, I think even people that maybe were dealt good cards and going back to like maybe not fully appreciating what they had, there can still be some gratitude and thankfulness in the current moment of like, you know what, I'm acknowledging that I maybe didn't take as well of a gratitude and like joyful heart for that time or that era of those people in my life. But I going back to the ownership, I can take honor in that now and ownership in that now, and maybe that's picking up a phone and making a phone call and saying, hey, you know what, I just want to thank you for who you are, who you were then to me, and just the thankfulness that I didn't really give back to you then, but I can give that to you right now.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way for sure. And just shows kind of just the growth and the level up of the wisdom and, kind of maturity that you have there, that you're growing in. So, man, how has that then kind of shifted into just your work? So you have been with, well, I would like to backtrack maybe just a little bit first before we get into your work. How did that then shift into your sport career? I don't want to skip over that because I want to chat a little bit. You played high school football. You were a kicker. You were a wide receiver. You went and played ball at Texas Tech and then into the NFL. I did want to shine a little bit and hear a little bit more on your granddad and how that kind of nature helped with your NFL pursuit. Yeah. Could you share a little bit of that journey?
Yeah, for sure. So as far as like just the overview, I guess, of that, you can stop me in between if you want to stop there. Yeah. So obviously went from there, from high school, went to a Division II school for Southern Arkansas.
Yeah,
because they told me that I could do both, right? They told me I could play receiver and I could kick. Yeah. Recruiting tactic. They did a phenomenal job because I bought it. And I get there and it's like,
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, it freaking sucked. It was the greatest blessing in disguise at the time. Because I get there and they're like, well, if you get hurt playing receiver, we lose you as a kicker, a punter, and a kickoff guy. So you have 4 positions. I was like, that makes logical sense, but you could have told me that before you got me here.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to come here. I remember the day I signed and I had to take a picture and like send in the signing because I was in Arkansas. And my mom was like, you can smile. I was like, no, I'm pissed. I'm only going to be here for a year. I'm out of here. Like, I'm just trying to go. I did not want to go D2. Wow. Yeah. Now, I didn't tell them that, but like that was my thought process. Yeah. And so I get there and then I'm thinking, I want to play receiver. That was the thing I wanted to do. And I kicked because I just kind of could. And I played soccer and it was the thing I did. And so I get there and 2 things happen. Number 1, they said I can't play receiver. And number 2, they told me I need to learn how to punt because we're not bringing anybody else in. So I'm like, all right, 3 months to figure out how to punt in front of my resume is my film. So like if I suck, no one's going to recruit me at that point either. Oh. So I was like, okay, cool. And this is where I got really close to my grandfather because we spent those 3 months training and learning how. He had like high speed, like slow, like I don't even know what the decimal, whatever it would be that you could see. And we would go through each kick and spend like 20 minutes on each kick and how he was a sports science guy. So like how the body works, get the most power.
Wow.
We spent literally 3 months, 5 days a week, 3 hours outside trying to figure this out. And thankfully it worked because our team sucked. We won we won 1 game. I punted over 80 times.
Oh my God.
Which is like stupid. Like in the pros, you punt maybe 20, maybe 40 if you suck in a season. We punted double in my first season. We won 1 game. There was a couple games where I'd punt 8 times in a game. On 6 to 8 was average. Like I'm just like, all right, cool. I'm getting great game film. This is incredible.
Yeah, but maybe that was the reason you were there.
Not many kickoffs, but we had a lot of punts, and yeah, it was great because I got a lot of practice. Because then from there, I transferred to Texas Tech, and that's kind of what they wanted me to do more of was punt. Because the setup, they had a kicker that was already there on scholarship, and so I did kickoffs and punts mainly, and then that's what I ended up doing in the NFL. So it worked out.
Blessing in disguise.
So much, but it was something else.
Man, so then your time with your granddad going through the punt, just that process and the skill and the technique, and then you shared a little bit of then going into the NFL, how you kind of mentioned earlier, how did he assist with that? How did he help you? How did you kind of network, put film out there, scout agents, all of that?
Yeah, so thankfully at Tech we had some big time players at the time. So we had like I think 28 of the 32 NFL scouts at our pro day, which definitely helped because we had I think 21 guys get drafted that year in that class, which was really nice because it helps me, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had Pat Mahomes at the time, we had Baker Mayfield, we had the squads,
yeah,
and so that helped with basically getting recruited, if you would use that word, or scouted or
being
whatever,
seen.
From them. So that's kind of was the easy way from there. Obviously, you get an agent. They do all that for. That was a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Which my grandfather helped me out a little bit too with that, connected me to somebody that connected me to my agent on who I had, and then just that fun process itself is it's a wild game. I realized how much of a business the NFL is.
Yeah.
It is freaking wild, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. So what was your stint there?
About, so let's see, 2015, about 4 years. Wow. Yeah. I always forget now. I remember the years, but yeah, 4.
Time flies.
Dude, it's crazy. Then tore my hip flexor, and that kind of was the end thing for me. It's a transition of either wait a year or two to get back in the system of things. Because as kickers and punters, most people don't know, are not on not salary cap. They're not on like guaranteed contracts unless you make it through like your 4th or 5th year. Then they put you on a contract that's guaranteed. Otherwise, it's like they basically pay you weekly, essentially how it works.
Wow.
It'll be a yearly salary, but they pay you weekly. And so if they cut you during the week, it's like, all right, cool, you're not getting the rest of that.
Wow.
So it's very cutthroat within the first 4 years for the kicker and punter. And so, yeah, that was a whole business side of thing I didn't realize either.
Yeah.
But yeah.
A little stressful.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Dang, dude.
You show up for a week and you're like, all right, cool, bad day. Well, I wonder if I'll be here next week.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of deal.
Gosh.
Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. The coaches really liked what I could do, but at the same time, doesn't mean it's not over your shoulder thinking about it.
For sure. Yeah, it's in your hands, but it's technically not in your hands.
Correct.
Man, so I know after that you moved back here to Dallas area, got into the business world, and then kind of started your journey with Apex. Would love to hear kind of how did just some of that uncertainty and unknown and like resilience that you had to build through your time as an athlete, but especially during the time of the unknown being in the NFL, how has that helped shape you and grow you into just what you're doing now?
Dude, it's everything, to be honest. The reason being is because the uncertainty of sports, of like them having almost a say in what your future looks like, is something I did not like. I didn't like it at all. I wanted to do something where like I have full control of what I do. And that's kind of why I went the entrepreneur route. I'm just like, all right, if I put in the work, which I know I'll put in the work, then it's up to me, really. And there's certain things I can't control that, you know, the government may do in taxes or legalizations or whatever. But for the most part, I have full control of what can happen as long as I put the work in. And so that's what kind of led me into the entrepreneur space. Went into insurance first, get into a couple different businesses there, and then got into the Apex side of things because I was looking to get around. I just wanted to get around top 1% of business owners, the same way I was top 1% of sports. I knew environment was everything. I was like, I just got to get in the right environment because there's things I don't know, and I don't even know what to ask. I just need to get in the space to figure out, okay, cool, that's what it's supposed to look like. Those are the conversations you're supposed to have. That's what it's supposed to, you know, that's how you're supposed to operate that. That's what an SOP is supposed to look like. You know, all the little things that you learn from being in the business that you're like, I wouldn't have learned unless I was there. Yeah. Same thing in sports, right? You're not going to learn unless you put the pads on what a hit feels like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can just, oh, that probably hurts. No, it's different when you get hit. You know what I mean? It's completely different. So that kind of thing is what it taught me a lot, number one there. And then number two is like, I don't know what tomorrow holds. So like the entrepreneurship side of things, that's definitely something that's there. It's like, well, if I don't make a paycheck, there is not one.
Ironic.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's a weird dichotomy of like, I wanted to get away from it, but I kind of went right back into it. Yeah. But I had it because of the more control piece. But it definitely helped prepare that entrepreneur side because getting used to, I think, from not only school, but just in general, even from sports, it's like everything was paid for, everything was good. It's kind of like everything was taken care of. And then now you get out in the real world, it's like, all right, it's up to you to figure all that stuff out now. So it definitely prepared my mindset a little bit there and to be able to handle pressure and stress that entrepreneurship has. And just say, I just got to outwork the pressure. And number one, really, it's not really pressure. I think the definition of pressure that we put in this world is not really what it is. It's a perspective, how we see it. Like real pressure, in my opinion, is like, you know, like a single mom has got literally no bills, no car. Like that's pressure. Me having to figure out how to make money in an open economy, that's not much pressure. To be honest, you know what I mean. So it's different from there, I think too.
Yeah, so just like you just said, it's just your perception of reality and like just the perspective and just you taking the kind of going back to the ownership of the drive. Like yes, you're driving the car, you're driving the vehicle. There's going to be all types of different factors and things that are going to jump into the road, but like you're turning the wheel and you're going to do your best to do that. Man, how has that helped you expand your reach and your growth within Apex? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, and please share. I would love to hear more, and I think the audience would like to hear more too of what you guys do over at Apex. I think maybe analogy going off what you just said is a lot of who you know is how you grow. And you made that initiative to put yourself into a space that you could really get to connect and learn and grow from other guys that know a lot more than you did, to gather more wisdom. But now you have kind of full circle come around and you're offering that to a lot of other guys. So you're kind of like an entrepreneur within a business.
Yeah.
And I think probably a majority of listeners maybe aren't entrepreneurs and they might not be happy with where they're at. Like, how could you encourage someone through, based off what you're doing and your drive through Apex, where you've had a lot of success, yes, working for a brand and a vision and a mission, but also adding your personal touch that aligns with that brand and that mission?
Yeah, facts. I think people underestimate the capacity of growth you can have within an organization rather than having to be your own.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, there's plenty of we call it entrepreneurs that are billionaires. Like, I know them. And so, like, it's possible. So if it's been done, it can be done again.
Yeah.
But if we don't see it that way, then we will never have the scope to be able to see it,
The
right?
grass is greener somewhere else.
Right. And so then we also take on sometimes, and not saying that you couldn't do it on your own. That's not the point. The point is, okay, cool. What am I looking to do? Can I go further, faster? Can I get to my goal? Like, what's my goal? Is my goal to have a CEO next to my name, or is my goal to hit a certain landmark in finances and set my family up? Like, that's what's really the goal here. Because you can have, cool, I'll give you the CEO role. And I mean, Ryan Stewman always talks about, I'd rather have, a piece of a watermelon than a penny, right? Like a full penny. Like, I'd rather have a piece of something huge than something of my own that's really small. And so it's just like, that's the concept we have to understand, I think, is what's the real goal? Like, is it just to be, I'm the guy? Or is it to be like, no, like, my family sees me as the guy because of what I provided? Like, there's a different view there.
Yeah.
And so if you can align, as long as the visionary or the person of the company or whatever is big enough, which I think that's where I push a lot of owners, is like, make the vision big enough to where everybody can fit underneath their vision. Because if it doesn't, then they can't see it. And if they can't see it, then I mean, I'm a biblical guy. Like, if you can't see it, you can't achieve it, right? If you can't see it, I mean, a dream perishes, right? Like, that's how it happens. And so if we can create a goal or a vision big enough for everyone that can fit in, it's a win-win for everyone. And then sometimes it's just about helping those people see the vision and inside that vision. But I think from the standpoint on that and encouraging people is that, number one, it's possible. I've seen it, and I'm walking in it with a bunch of other guys doing it too. And there's so many benefits to it too, in a lot of ways. Especially depending on the setup, but the culture and the environment, you getting around other A+ players, like, it's a big difference, right? Like, I do believe environment, culture is everything. The older and older I get, I realize that. Like, as kids, you hear the cliche saying of, like, you are who you surround yourself with, right? And it's like, yeah, I heard that so many times. But then the older you get, like, no, that's literally everything. Like, there's a reason people keep saying it. I just don't think people see the depth of that and nor how to do it. And I think that's where it's like, it becomes a cliche saying instead of like a principle of life. And that's where it needs to shift to. Because if you surround yourself with the right people, you get different knowledge, you get different information, you get different thought process, you have different level of friendships. Like, it's a different game.
And I think some touch on real quick, going back to like just maybe the clichéness, if that's a word, of like who you are, the 5 people you hang around is who you are, is that there's almost like this subconscious like manifestation with that phrase, or like just surface level kind of like go with the wind and the flow. With really, like, I want to surround myself with 5 amazing people that are deeply rooted in who they are as a person and confident on the vision, on where they're going. And I want to align with that, of course, if it's aligning with mine and my vision and stuff. But yeah, it's like you can surround yourself with amazing people and still create care and touch and reach and create impact on other people's lives. It doesn't have to be this just kind of like passive, go with the wind and not have any fruit out of your life.
100%.
And I think just from what I've seen and what you guys are doing with Apex, like, you guys do that from a networking space. Like you guys are connecting, like you just mentioned, A player type people that are from different industries.
Yeah.
You guys are helping put those types of people in a room, and honestly, maybe in a way, almost like stepping back, like letting just the curation of conversation and friction of sharpening kind of happen. Is that
Yeah. So
right?
basically, we have about 32, or probably 3,000 business owners that we work with actively. And we'll have like meetups in person, we'll have calls, we'll do all this kind of stuff that they need. But the whole goal is like getting around other people that are going through it a high level with you, right? Like it may be different. And the cool part is it's different industries, right? Because I've countless times now, it's like, all right, I've talked to people that are like, oh, if you're not in insurance, I can't really relate to them. Like, no, because I've seen it happen to where a guy that's in roofing gave a guy that's in insurance an idea that the insurance market has not tapped into yet. And once he applied it, he was new to the market. It was a blue ocean and made millions of dollars just because on an industry standard over here that was not an industry standard over here. So like cool things like that happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, just getting around other like-minded people, number one, that are constantly wanting to grow. Like I can't tell you, before I even got to Apex, I was looking for that for a long time. And that's when I found, I was like, that's what I want. Because I was in insurance, number one. I was around other people who were like, man, I'm good making, 100 grand. I'm good. I'm just good. My family's good. Bills are paid. I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. And then nothing against that. But I was like, I'm hungry for more. And the money wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm after creating a legacy. And like, I can't do it by having that mindset. And so I was like, okay, more things, more video. Like, I just wanted the more aspect. Because I wanted to be everything I wanted, like I saw myself being. And so I wanted to get around the people that thought like that.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, like when you start getting around the people that think like that, that synergy is something you can't coach it, you can't teach it. It's just there.
For sure.
And then that too, like in the business context, like referrals, like all that starts to synergize itself. And like, oh, cool, reach out to my buddy. Here, do this. I tried this. That doesn't work. Do this instead. Like, and so it's shortchanging the success cycle by 10-fold, 100-fold for certain people.
Yeah.
Like we had, just to use roofers, for example, we had 7 roofers last year exit their companies for $40 million individually. All of them, one was 120 just last year, exit their companies for that. Cash in their bank, like in the bank account.
Crazy.
Wasn't just sell. So like those are the type of individuals you're talking to. You're going through like PE, firms, like you're talking different languages. So then now this next year we'll probably have even more because it's been done. The race has been done. And you have 7 people do it. Like, hey, cool, who do I reach out to? What do I need to do to get them the best multiple in my company? Like those are conversations that are now being had 3 years out prior to sell. You're setting yourself up for greatness, right? And so, but if you're not in that environment, you're just like, all right, cool, I want to sell it. What do I do now? And you're 2 years behind, and you got to stay in the business for 2 more years just to get it to that point. So there's like things like that happen, as well as it's just fun to play with winners. It just really is, right? Like it's fun to be around you, like seeing what you're doing, like being around the people like you. It's like I like being around that because, as you know, just since being in sports, you're only as good as your weakest link. You are, right? Like if your quarterback sucks, your offense is only so good. You know what I mean? And so now as we get older, it's up to us. This was the biggest revelation I had outside of once I left sports and into business was sports always taught like the strategy of you have coaching staff, you have trainers, you have like the organization itself as the owner. So you have all those things in place. Like it was already preset. You just kind of fell into the system. But when you get out and you get business and entrepreneurship, you have to create that system yourself. You got to create your board of advisors. You've got to create your team. You've got to create the people that will look over your shoulder and make sure you're doing the right thing. You got to create all of that. You're the CEO of your life now. And if you don't have anybody else around you, it's just you.
It's great.
And so now it became, okay, cool. How do I recreate this thing that was super successful for me to allow me to be the top 1% in the world? It's all the same. And it's just, I've got to change the titles and find the people to fit in those spots because the system works. And so that became like an aha moment. I was like, cool. That's where Apex took off in my head. I was like, that's what I've got to do. I've got to create a board of advisors. I've got to create people that I can do that with, a team of people to get me to where I'm going. Then I'll strategically and intentionally place the people that I need in my life to help me get to my goal. And then usually the other people get blessed by it too. So it's a cool synergy piece.
I love that. I think I've never thought about it that way of like just kind of falling into place as an athlete.
Yeah.
Like you go to school, you go to practice, but there's so much other layers of the staff, the trainers, the principals, the teachers that add in all these different touches. And yes, they may not directly have skin in the game or blood in the game, blood, sweat, tears, or financial, but like there's the audience, the noise, the crowd, all of that plays a factor. I love that. And I think it then allows you to do your job of what you're supposed to be really good at and what you have the talents and gifts for within your role of that organization.
Facts.
And I think it can definitely be, and I'm feeling it now, obviously as an entrepreneur, it can be hard to have to try to wear a lot of those hats. But I mean, I'm always saying like my cart's before the horse. Like I'm always having those futuristic conversations, kind of going back to what you said about like maybe some brands or businesses that you've worked with that realize like, oh man, I got to put another 2 or 3 years into this before it's maybe at a place that is sustainable for sale or trade and ownership, whatever that next step for them is. But to some people, they might, and you could add some light into this, some may see that as like, now is never enough, or you're always looking for more. But for me, if I could kind of combat that, I would say I'm trying to be wise and thoughtful on where I'm going, keeping that vision really big, for me to stay positive and hungry, and the days that I'm down in the ditch and it's tired and it's dark, like to remember my why.
Facts.
What would you say to someone like that? That's like,
yeah, I really do think what you said was beautiful, to be honest, on how you worded it. I think too, like obviously from the standpoint I think about it from like God's perspective. If God throws me here, there's more for me to do. So having a more mindset and saying I have a more mindset would be like, then why am I here then? God would just want me just to sit around and exist.
Yeah.
If I did, why would I be here? And so it's just like, if I'm going to be here, then I'm going to do more. Like I'm God's hands and feet. I'm not just going to get lazy and sit here and not use them. He told me to use them. Yeah. So while I'm here, I've got to use it. So having the more mindset, I think, is viewing it in a way of like, okay, I'm going to be used in some capacity, so I'm not going to not use it, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I think what you said too is like, it's wise to plan and to do those things and then let God order my steps, right? Like I can plan it, I can do it, create the vision, do all those things. And then God, like, order my steps. Where do I need to go? Okay, cool. I'm going to pivot. Let's pivot. I'm going to keep planning. I got to be diligent. Like that's things that he requires of us. But at the same time too, we have to be the ones to step. Like he can create the little, whatever you call those little steps on the water, whatever they call those. But you do have to cross the river at some point, right? Yeah. Like you do have to put the staff in the ground and the water parts. Like you do have to do an action. Yeah. And so if I'm not doing something, then I can't walk in some of the blessing God has for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's how I'd combat some of that, to be honest, too.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think this past year, you might have known, like Sophie and we've had a handful of miscarriages. We've got 2 beautiful little boys. Yeah. And we've lost 4 in a row, and that's been really hard. And I feel like God's really shown me that. And there's been a lot of other kind of tragedy around some of our friends and our family, and God's really shown me that like there can be joy and mourning at the same time, and that you can like be grateful for what he's done and what he's going to do and what he's going to continue to do, but you can also be like, man, this is hard. Why is this? And it's for us, for me, for you, I know you believe that it's just a reminder that this isn't our final place, but also it's going back into that action of like, man, I'm going to keep put the next foot in front of the other. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep loving. I'm going to keep caring, keep providing. And I think that can also be brought into kind of the business world too, is that like I'll do my best to be present with where I am and the things I need to do the day to day. I tell the team is like when we're doing our training appointments, that's our sweat equity. That's the stuff we have to do every day to keep the lights on in the gym, to kind of get us that paycheck. But then the other equity is that additional stuff we're doing. We're going to networking. We're asking our clients for referrals, asking them for reviews, and connecting with other small business owners to continue to pursue that bigger vision. And those two can exist at the same time, and that's okay.
Facts. Well, I agree completely. I think that goes back to what you said too, with like, if someone looks at that, it's like, well, when's enough? I'm like, when God says I'm done. Yeah. And I think that's when it is. That's enough. That's when it's enough. Yeah. And I think, But going to your point of like all the little things, whether it be like going out to business network, constantly looking to grow, that mindset is contagious. And that's why I think environment is important, because if you get around an environment where it's like, oh no, you're good, dude, just enjoy life. I'm like, I'm going to miss out on so many things. Like, so my thing that gives me like the chills, that pushes me, is this idea and thought process. And Ed Milet put words to it, but it was when I get to heaven and God introduces me to who I could have been, and I shake his hand, I'm like, that's who I could have been. I'd be pissed, right? And I'm like, God, you're telling me I could have been that? What in the heck was I? I want to go back. Like, let me go back.
Yeah.
I want to shake the hand and be like I want to be eye to eye, and this, like, I look exactly like that. Like, that's the goal of it. And so, like, that's the thing that keeps me up at night. It's like, okay, cool. Like, what would that version do? Like, if God says that this was all you could be, then I'm like, do I level up to that? And if I haven't, then I do have more to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not there yet. So
yeah, I'm sure you have a great honor to work with some amazing business owners and guys that are not only older than you, but also possibly wiser than you. That is probably one of my favorite things of being a fitness professional and concierge coach, is working with unbelievably successful men and women that are way wiser and respectfully older in their 50s to 70s. And it's been such a as I've become an entrepreneur over the past few years, it's been, my perspective of retirement has really shifted. Like, it's, and just the American culture is like, oh man, we got to work till we retire. It's like, well, what if you die the day after you retire? You don't get any fruitfulness. It's like, I want to, Lord willing, be fruitful and meet the needs that my family needs now, but also enjoy the journey, not just that destination, because the proud but never satisfied logo or motto is always there. Like, that stick is always moving, which is okay. But so many, great people I get to work with are planning for retirement, or also maybe don't want to retire because they've realized that they're doing what they love. It's keeping their mind sharp. It's allowing them to still interact with people that they wouldn't interact with if they were just sitting at their home enjoying their retirement. And that's different for everyone, of course. I'm not saying it's not. But, like, where have you seen maybe some guys that you're working with on a day-to-day that you could really shed some light on that are really doing that well? They're living in the now, they're excited for where they're going, and they're enjoying the journey.
Yeah, dude. Thankfully, I get to see a lot of it, to be honest. And also, too, Ryan Stewman is the one that's leads Apex, that started Apex, and I get to work with, CEO of all that. He does a really good job of it, too, now, in the fact of, like, how to live, not to say two lives, but almost two lives. So, like, you're living presently, but you're also living in the space of, like, preparing for retirement, even though you may never retire.
Yeah.
But it's more of the aspect of, like, I'm going to prepare for what if and live like it's now. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the mindset I like to have. It's like, okay, cool. Like, if something were to happen and what if I couldn't work anymore? Well, then I'm set up. I'm good. But I'm going to live for now too, just in case that moment never does come.
Yeah.
And I think for me, where I'm at now, and obviously being newly engaged too, I'm like, okay, cool. My first thing is I want to retire her. Like, that's the thing first. Not me. I like working. I like doing it. Like, I would feel bored out of my mind. I probably wouldn't feel like I have a purpose if I didn't work. Yeah. And so, but for her, I'd love her to be like, all right, cool, you can if you want. Like, it's up to you.
Yeah.
You be creative. You can do your thing, have fun, whatever. And I'll still she probably will still like to do something too. I think all humans should have something that they do.
Some purpose.
Exactly. But I think for me, that's my first goal. Is like, okay, cool. I'm viewing retirement not for me, but like, if something happens there, then when kids get involved, then it's like, all right, cool. Now, how can I make sure that they're good so they do their passion and don't have to work for money? They get to work for their dream, and it's a different work. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of how I see it from that standpoint. And then obviously I'll make sure that I'm covered in some regard too for whatever. If something were to happen, I'm okay. But I liked what I'm doing. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I would see that perspective for me. And it'll probably shift over time, obviously, with the more people that get involved in my life. But yeah.
Yep. As your wife and possible kids. And
yeah, bro. It's wild to think about, dude.
Well, man, I think I recently just saw too that you've leveled up within your role at Apex. I would love to hear a little bit of that. And maybe as we kind of get into concluding here, like, what kind of growth, if you're able and willing to share, do you guys kind of have planned within Apex and your personal growth within Apex? What does that look like for you guys over these next chapters as you get into marriage and in a different family life?
Yeah, for sure. So cool things as far as Apex that's happened. two big, huge like milestones when I first got there were one, I realized that so Ryan, the guy at Apex, he had bought a Rolex for somebody who had produced a lot of income in the company.
Nice.
And that was all. I always wanted a Rolex. I'm actually not wearing it to the office today. I wish I was. Sorry. But it was once I realized that he had done it, I never wanted to buy one. I wanted to earn one.
Yeah.
And so that was my thing. I was like, I want to earn a Rolex. So as of last month, we had a whole little event that we had, and he basically gifted it to me on the stage. When I was like, it was awesome, bro. And so that was one off the list. And then literally like 3 days later, I also wanted, there's a corner office in the office, right? Mm-hmm. Nice, big, all that kind of stuff. That was another one on my list. And then got the bigger office and the corner office part, which was amazing too, all within like a week. And then obviously in the same month, I'm getting engaged. Like, it was just a massive month last month.
Yeah.
And a lot of cool things too from just the way we're growing at Apex. There's a huge vision now for what we've got. And it's huge. Like, our goal is to get headquarters in a bunch of different places as well. And what that looks like here in the next couple of years, I mean, it's gonna be sick, right? And so I'm pumped for the vision of what we can do and where we can go, and if there is other locations to go and do. But man, it's exciting for sure for that. And then also too, just within, like, I love being around a ton of different business owners with opportunities, whether it be from an investment standpoint that I can invest in, or two, just been like, all right, cool, that's a great business model, boom, boom, boom. How can we, like, it's just fun being creative and finding ways to grow businesses. Number one, because that's a skill that I can use forever. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, like, and if I have proof of it being over and over, I'm like, no, like, I can tell you for certain this works. Because I've done it with 4 or 5 different people, and I took them from this number to this number. That's the thing that you can't buy a course on that. You can't buy a training on that. Like, it's just something you did or you didn't do. And so that's one of those things where it's like, that's the fun part right now, is I'm in that season.
The saying people say is like, you became a overnight success over 10 years.
That's so true, bro.
And people always say, like, oh, you got a Rolex now. That's nice. You got a nice office. That's nice. But, like, you've also been working there for a very long time, and you've been, I see your Instagram stories. This fool's like leaving the office at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, may or may not happen when you have kids. I don't know.
I'm getting it in right now. That was the goal.
If there's communication and understanding, then maybe that is okay for you guys to do. But just you put in the hustle, and people see it. Obviously, Ryan and your team has seen it, and that is you being a part of that collectiveness and that camaraderie and that team, that blessing others, and those blessings sowing back to you, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And it's so cool. But man, I really appreciate you coming on and joining me here and taking the time. It's a pleasure, bro. Especially after seeing that you recently got engaged. And I'm like, man, I'm texting him last week, asked him to come on the podcast. I didn't even know. I mean, obviously, it seems like not a lot of other people knew. But,
no one knew for like 3 days before, really.
Yeah, but man, I really do appreciate the time that you've taken to come out here and to do this and to share this time, this conversation with me. Yeah. I would love to leave the audience with the one last thing based off of who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. I know we've touched on a lot, but what are maybe a few last concluding points that you could feel like could add value or motivation to the audience?
Yeah. If I give one thing, I give this to everybody, which we touched on heavily, is you've got to find the right environment. You have to. It's up to your growth. Like, even from a scientific standpoint, if I've got it's a fake plant, but a succulent. But if you have a plant here that's in this pot, and it's only going to grow to the capacity of the pot. But if I put it in a pot that's as big as this table, it has a lot bigger chance of growing. Same thing in our lives, right? If I'm not putting myself in a space where I can grow, then I'm limited based upon the confines of what I put myself in. Mm. And so get around other people that are winning. And that's why I think it's great to be around, I wouldn't say just winners, but like people that are in that mindset, because your capacity just got stretched. Yeah. And if you're wanting to do more and be more and become the version of yourself you want to be, environment is the first step, number one. Then number two, I would think, is just get yourself uncomfortable. We only grow in our uncomfortable spaces. Same, going back to the pot example, as soon as I put this little plant into a bigger pot, it's uncomfortable because it's not used to all the space and the gap between itself and the edge. But that's the reality of it. And then sooner or later it turns to that tree behind you, and it's like overarching the outside of the plant. Like, so that is a part of it. So get in the right environment. Which is why I got connected to Apex in the first place, because of the environment. And then two, stretch yourself to do things that are uncomfortable. Yeah. And then lastly, I would say be intentional with who you let in your inner circle of your life. And that's family as well as like close friends. And it should be, it doesn't have to be a huge number. It can be 5, 4, 3, whatever the number is. But you do have to have somebody that's not work, that's not business. And I would say even not family that you have in your life that are on that list. Because there's conversations that you can't talk about with family. There's conversations you can't talk about with people at work, but you need to talk about it. And so I would say get the inner circle dialed in. And those things, I think those 3 things right there would be pivotal to anybody's success.
Totally. I think that's great. I would totally agree with all of those. Well, man, thank you so much. Lastly, where can people find you? Social media, contact, Apex?
Yeah, dude. Social media, obviously anywhere. Instagram, it's at TSYM, TSYMM. And then Facebook, obviously type my name in, Taylor Symmank. And then if y'all are phone number people, I'll give you my cell phone. It's 469-237-6329. Just shoot me a text. I respond to all of them. That's actually me. It's the one my mom texts me on. Like, but also that being said, don't blow me up with random crap.
It's not an AI bot.
No, it's not an AI bot. So treat it as a real person, please. But yeah, anytime, anyway, I can connect.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And for real, this guy is who he says he is. Known him for over a decade now. Crazy. And it's been great to be friends and see our new chapters of life. But thank you guys for listening to episode 7 with number 7 football player Taylor Symmank. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.